Hi there, this is Jonathan Ginsberg, and I'd like to answer a question I recently got on one of my bankruptcy blogs that when I got it, I first thought that's kind of silly, but then I started thinking about it and realized it was actually a pretty darn good question. And that is, somebody writes me and says, I've got some equity in property. I own my house. I've only got $20,000 or $30,000 left to pay it off. I've got some equity. Can I still file bankruptcy? And I realized that for a lot of people, they don't realize that bankruptcy is not an all or nothing type of thing. Chapter 7 sort of can be. In Chapter 7, you can really only file Chapter 7 if you have very little, certainly in Georgia, you have very little in terms of assets. You can only shelter, for example, $10,000 of equity in real estate for a married couple, $20,000. But if you have more than that, if you have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of equity that is not sheltered by the Georgia exemption law, you can still file bankruptcy. It's going to be called Chapter 13. That's the difference. And what a Chapter 13 does is it allows you to pay back your unsecured debt to the extent of your non-exempt property, non-exempt assets. So for example, if you have, we'll make it round numbers, if you have a house valued at $100,000 and you owe let's say you owe $40,000, meaning you've got $60,000 of equity. You can shelter $10,000, meaning now you have $50,000 of non-exempt equity. If you have $100,000 of unsecured debt, you'll end up paying back at least 50 cents on the dollar, or a 50% plan. If you have $200,000 of unsecured debt, then you might pay back at 25 cents on the dollar. So basically you pay back your unsecured debt to the extent that you have non-exempt equity in property. So the point here is that if you are going into bankruptcy and you have assets, you have cash, you have real estate, you have jewelry, things like that, that have some value that you're concerned about, the way you protect those items and avoid losing them is to go into Chapter 13 and then pay back your credit cards, unsecured debt, to the extent that you have assets that you cannot otherwise shelter in bankruptcy. So in Chapter 13, we frequently file cases. I may file a plan that pays 70 cents on the dollar to unsecureds. It may pay 50 cents. It may pay 25. It may pay 10 cents on the dollar. So whereas Chapter 7, you generally wipe out 100% of your debt, Chapter 13, maybe you wipe out 20%, maybe you wipe out 80%. It just depends on a number of factors. One of the big ones is how much non-exempt equity do you have? And that's really one of the utilities of Chapter 13. It does allow people to file bankruptcy even if they have stuff and maybe too much stuff to lose. So I hope this has been helpful in explaining that point. I think it's actually a very important point that means that Chapter 13 is available to you even if you have stuff. And you can still file bankruptcy, still get the benefit of the automatic stay, still eliminate a lot of debt. Of course, in Chapter 13, unsecured debt like credit cards, there's no interest. There's no accruing interest on it, so it can have some very powerful benefit, and you may be able to eliminate, some number, 90%, 80%, even 50%. But paying back 50% of your credit card debt with no interest over 5 years can be a lot more palatable than dealing with all the credit card debt coming at you right now. So if you have any questions, give me a call. Be happy to answer them and kind of give you a walkthrough as to how Chapter 13 might work for you. Again, keep those questions coming. This is Jonathan Ginsberg, your Atlanta bankruptcy attorney, and we'll talk to you soon.